Hi, I'm Louisa Burwood-Taylor, Managing Editor of Ag Funder News, and I'm here with Robert Gerlach from Klim. Robert, tell us, what is Klim?
So Klims is a platform that helps farmers transition to regenerative agriculture, and we do that so that we can achieve that goal at speed and at scale. It's a platform that offers farmers all the services they need, ranging from documentation and quantification of the soil carbon they build up, to access to know-how and access to a community. And we work mainly with the food industry, whom we enable to decarbonize their supply chains and also transition their supply chains to regenerative agriculture, which is not only of interest because of you achieve your climate targets, but also because it's actually good practice for your core business as it makes your supply chains more resilient.
So when did you found Klim?
So the work started in 2019. The company has officially been founded in 2020.
Okay, so regenerative agriculture has been around for a while. I've certainly been reporting on it since 2014, but it's obviously building up interest from investors. But how has it been at this event the last few days?
So that's an interesting question, because in Europe, I would say that regenerative agriculture takes center stage at every event around agriculture right now. It's the one topic, and here I feel it's a bit more diverse in terms of topics that are on the top of the priority. So I was actually quite surprised that regenerative agriculture didn't seem to take that much of an important role here, which, not judging it, is just quite interesting.
I mean, I'm quite surprised because actually in our global report that we just released, we did a survey of VC investors globally, and carbon and anything related to carbon was one of the top things that they were excited about investing in and thought they'd see more investment in. So much so that I'm almost wondering if there's a bit of a hype cycle going on within carbon, since it's very early, a lot of the science is still new. Do you think that there could be too much money chasing it at some point?
So I actually think the opposite. I think not enough money into it, because if you think of the benefits of regenerative agriculture in terms of improving profitability of the farmland, it's actually a no-brainer, not only for farmers to go that way, but also for the whole food industry in order to achieve a more resilient food production. And I think the hesitation has a lot to do with the fact that today we cannot perfectly measure yet what the amount of soil carbon is. But we need to always keep in mind that actually we're currently under immense time pressure. If we want to achieve the climate targets and improve resilience, and looking at the increasing population we need to feed, we have no time to waste. We need to really accelerate that regenerative transition. And in my view, we will get better with measurement of soil carbon. But that doesn't mean that we should wait until we have achieved a 1% error rate before we even start. And I think it's also not necessary, because in the end you can build incentive structures that are actually serious and properly designed, which take into account those measurement errors with a buffer, for example, and you can still push the farmers to transition, which you need to do now.
So do you think, thinking about that geographic difference between Europe and over here in the US, farms on the whole are larger here in the US than they are in Europe. Do you think that plays into it? Is the transition, over larger acres is obviously going to be a much bigger challenge? Do you think maybe that's why it's slower on the uptake over here?
I don't actually think that regenerative agriculture is slower on the uptake in the US. I think that the US and Australia have pretty much been leading on that front. If you think of the whole conservation agriculture movement, history with the Dust Bowl in the US. So I think it's merely a question of how it is presented at this particular conference. And in terms of farm sizes, I think you can look at it quite agnostically in terms of farm size. If you exclude the question of how expensive is it to acquire or win one farmer to adopt those practices. If you have a country full of smallholder farmers, you need to have a different farmer acquisition strategy than if you have a country where you have mostly 2,000 hectare farmland.
Okay, and lastly, what were you doing before Klim?
Before Klim, I've always been in product development with a focus on impact. So I've been working in the mobility space, in the digital health space, even in the digital politics space. And originally, I'm an engineer by training. I lived and worked in the UK and did a PhD there in engineering science, and left the ivory tower at some point to go full on into industry, the real world.
You're loving agriculture?
Yes, in fact, it's interesting because perhaps for outsiders, sometimes it's not so immediately obvious to see how complex agriculture actually is. My first work was in aerospace, where you would think this is super complex, difficult, you never understand everything. But now that I'm working in agriculture, I see we really understand little at the moment, and it's a wonderful topic to work on, not only in terms of impact you can make on so many fronts, food security, climate, biodiversity, but also in terms of challenge. The complexity of regenerative agriculture is so immense that you will never run out of interesting problems to solve, and you will never run out of interesting opportunities to apply new technology to help farmers solve those challenges.
And lastly, how much do you love AgFunder?
I love AgFunder very best. No, AgFunder, we're very, very happy and very pleased to have you as an investor, because I think it's important as an investor to have subject matter expertise and actually practice that also more than just doing roundtables every now and then, but actually reporting on it regularly. And so it was a real pleasure for me to meet you guys for the first time in person.
Exactly.
Yesterday. And so I'm very happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.